Today on the Word Preacher podcast, advocacy, the signs of the times, and the return of the King. I'm Brett Jensen, and this is the Word Preacher podcast. All right, our Come Follow Me curriculum for this week brings us to Doctrine and Covenants, section 45. This is a little bit different than some of the previous sections that we've been covering, and so we'll start a little bit differently. I'd like to start with a passage from the Book of Mormon. This is in Alma, chapter 34, verses 11 and 12. And this is Amulek speaking. He says, "Now there is not any man that can sacrifice his own blood, which will atone for the sins of another. Now if a man murdereth, behold, will our law, which is just, take the life of his brother? I say unto you, nay. But the law requireth the life of him who hath murdered. Therefore there can be nothing which is short of an infinite atonement, which will suffice for the sins of the world." Now, what Amulek was saying here can be a little bit confusing because it sort of almost flies in the face of the most fundamental aspect of Christianity. If a person can't be substituted in punishment for the crime of another, well, aren't Christians in real big trouble, since that's exactly what we say is true of Jesus, that he substitutes himself for the crimes of everyone else in the world. So how can this be when Amulek seems to point out that this is unlawful? Of course, Amulek's answer to this, as he continues, is to go on to suggest that only an infinite sacrifice can be used, not the sacrifice of some other man. A typical person is a finite sacrifice, and that is an invalid substitution. But the price that Jesus paid was not the price that just some man could pay. It was infinite. He paid a price that made him endure all the pains and all the afflictions of everyone everywhere through infinite time and space. And that gives increased depth to the reading at the beginning of our Doctrine and Covenants section, section 45. This is verses 3 through 5. "Listen to him who is the advocate with the Father, who is pleading your cause before him, saying, Father, behold the sufferings and death of him who did no sin, in whom thou wast well pleased. Behold the blood of thy Son which was shed, the blood of him whom thou gavest, that thyself might be glorified. Wherefore, Father, spare these my brethren that believe on my name, that they may come unto me and have everlasting life." So when Jesus pleads our case, it's not like he's some sort of high-paid attorney with a fancy suit and a prestigious degree. This isn't one of our buddies, a friend, who's just asking for us to, get some slack cut. Jesus, through his suffering, has become the victim of our crimes. And when the victim comes to the judge and pleads on behalf of the perpetrator, that changes everything. This section helps us to understand that Jesus literally paid a tremendous price. He suffered immeasurably, and that he is trying to spare those who made him suffer. That's us. There's no other advocate like Jesus Christ. And when he asks us to listen to him, to pay attention to what his counsel is, we definitely want to do what he says. All right. As he continues in section 45, he talks about some of the signs of the times. The gathering of Israel is described, verses 23 through 25. And in this ye say, truly, for so it is, but these things which I have told you shall not pass away until all shall be fulfilled. And this I have told you concerning Jerusalem. And when that day shall come, shall a remnant be scattered among all nations, but they shall be gathered again. But they shall remain until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So this also promises that all things will be fulfilled before the end. We know that the end is near, and we should be living as though it could happen very quickly. But also, this gives us some context that we should still be doing things like live on a budget, save money, work hard, invest in the future. It's not, well, the end could be coming tomorrow, so go get a bunch of debt and it doesn't matter, you won't have to repay it. This is not the counsel that we are receiving. We don't know when it will happen, but we should still live not in fear, but with the understanding that it will be soon, and we can have confidence that the problems which we are seeing, which are numerous in quantity and sinister in nature, will be solved. All right, he talks about wars in verses 26 and 27. And in that day shall be heard of wars and rumors of wars, and the whole earth shall be in commotion, and men's hearts shall fail them. And they shall say that Christ delayeth his coming until the end of the earth, and the love of men shall wax cold, and iniquity shall abound. An interesting contrast here. We have a description of commotion and men's hearts failing them, and then also simultaneously, in spite of all of this turmoil, the belief that Christ is delaying his coming. Seems like as things escalate, you would think the end is closer. But I think that this is important to think about. We understand that there is to be an increase of discord and contention, but that doesn't mean that we can say, oh, then the Lord is delaying his coming. That's foolish. And the other thing, what causes men's hearts to fail them? Why is this in here with the wars? Likely, this is not a phrase that's describing hard arteries or cholesterol. This is not the kind of heart failure that's being described. What is talked about, even in secular sources in modern times, people are frequently told to be true to their heart, to follow their heart, and to be their authentic self. And the desire to be loved, to be fulfilled, and to be respected, this leads some people down paths that actually result in things that fail them. Loneliness, bitterness, and shame. The path that they choose following their hearts is literally failing to produce the results in their lives that they want. And this is why Christ's way is that we give him our hearts, and he gives us a new heart, one that is capable of feeling the love and fulfillment and respect that comes from walking the covenant path. It's not something that means, oh, you'll be free from stumbling or failing. Now you have a new heart. No problems. That's not at all what it means. But it means that those who persist can have their desires, how their heart leads them, can be changed to lead them towards that which is wholesome, towards treasures that thieves cannot break through or steal. Also, the love of men waxing cold. There's an example that I heard on a show, a YouTube show, where someone was talking about Scrooge from Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Ebenezer Scrooge is an example, a very good example, of a person whose love has waxed cold. He's approached, on behalf of these charities who are looking for him to give of himself. And he points to the fact that there exist public institutions designed to handle these problems already, whether it's prisons or poorhouses. Don't they have those things? And if they would rather die than use those things, then they better get along and do it and decrease the surplus population. Now, today, a person might also believe that he is free from needing to help his fellow man because he cast a vote for a politician who promised to solve this problem. Isn't there a public solution that takes care of this for us? And I've changed my social media picture profile or profile picture to raise awareness. So there we go. You're welcome. I've supplied for the needs of my fellow men. These are examples of the love of men actually waxing cold because they believe, there's already solutions out there. I don't have to care. And in the case of Ebenezer Scrooge in A Christmas Carol, this was something that he, at the end, realized was not true. That he did feel a responsibility to take care of other people himself. It didn't matter that there's some public service that's good. It doesn't matter that someone in some other social class is taxed at a different rate and that some of that money is used to help other people. You have a responsibility to help your fellow man. You have a responsibility to make sure that your love does not wax cold. Now, it's harder to be compassionate when there's a large amount of fraud and deceit and iniquity, and this is also mentioned in this verse. How can you tell who really needs help and who's just trying to take advantage of people? There are scams that really take money from people who would be giving it to people in need, and they take it to people who are being dishonest, and that is tragic. And I mean, if you are in a position to help, another thing that can come to your mind is, would providing money or some other goods actually help, or would it enable something that would not be helpful? These are tough questions that people have to navigate, because it is not wise that a person run faster than he have strength. And it's meant that we actually help people, not just, give them something so that they'll go away. That's not actually love either. And it's not possible to help everyone. We have to do what's in our means and look for opportunities that are allow us to be of service to those around us. If we aren't looking for those opportunities, our love is susceptible to waxing cold. There's another show that I sometimes follow, a guy named Andrew Clavin, who likes to say, you may not win a fight, but you definitely can't win a surrender. Actively try to be of service. Actively try to be of service. Don't let your love wax cold. There's plenty of bad stuff that's going to happen, and this is predicted in these verses as well. Verse 33. And there shall be earthquakes also in divers places and many desolations. Yet men will harden their hearts against me, and they will take up the sword one against another, and they will kill one another. That's obviously a lot of bad stuff. It's not going to be all sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. But it's vital to remember that any of these bad things that are going to happen, any of them can be fixed by Jesus. You can trust in him. Let's move on to the return of the king. In the moment of despair, when it looks like no one will be able to help them, the survivors among the Jews will be gathered near the Mount of Olives. And in the moment where it appears all of their enemies have triumphed over them, and they will be vanquished permanently, in that moment, he will appear. Then shall the arm of the Lord fall upon the nations, and then shall the Lord set his foot upon this mount, and it shall cleave in twain, and the earth shall tremble and reel to and fro, and the heavens also shall shake. And the Lord shall utter his voice, and the ends of the earth shall hear it, and the nations of the earth shall mourn, and they that have laughed shall see their folly, and calamity shall cover the mocker, and the scorner shall be consumed, and they that have watched for iniquity shall be hewn down and cast into the fire. That's verses 47 through 50. Jesus literally will appear and save his people. And then they'll notice something. And then shall the Jews look upon me and say, what are these wounds in thine hands and in thy feet? Then shall they know that I am the Lord, for I will say unto them, these wounds are the wounds with which I was wounded in the house of my friends. I am he who was lifted up. I am Jesus that was crucified. I am the Son of God. And then shall they weep because of their iniquities. Then shall they lament because they persecuted their king. So at last the hero will be revealed, Jesus Christ, the King of Kings. And at that moment he will establish a peace that has not been known from the days of Eden. He is coming. And when he returns, he will make everything right. Don't fear the signs of the times. Understand that it is a sign that soon the King will appear. He is our great advocate. He intercedes on our behalf, and his desire is to help and to save us. We appreciate all the support for the Word Preacher podcast. Next week, we will look at sections 46 through 48, talking about gifts and records. Of course, there's a lot of stuff we did not cover in section 45. Please study that individually and with your family. And of course, as always, fight on.